So, welcome back to the channel, brothers and sisters, welcome back. I've came to do a urban legend. This one's quite a good urban legend, because I've had a couple of weird encounters in this area. This is a main area where the Hallows Eve, video was recorded. That's nuts. This light was way brighter than shine it down and pretty nuts. So I've came to where Hallows Eve and a couple of other, oh, I'm using the wrong one. Ah, there we go. That's way better. So came to where I've had a few weird things happen. Hallows Eve, that was a mental one. But I've had a few odd encounters in here as well. So this one's about the urban legend of the, and this is a weird one because there's not a lot of information on this because we've came Americanized with calling them skinwalkers, but their actual true name is Skufadin or Skufadin or Skufidin. Skufahidin is their proper pronunciation in Old English. And where I'm going with the Old English is they're mentioned in the Saxon Chronicle, and they were mentioned in the Saxon Chronicle by multiple kings. The legend of King Arthur and Merlin, they also get mentioned in that as well. But their origins is older than time. They're mentioned in multiple cultures actually. But we seem to have changed and called them skinwalkers, which is really quite weird because we actually have a name for them. Just they've changed the name for some weird reason. Became quite with some things became quite Americanized with, and that's one of them. Because they are our, well, they're actually older than skinwalkers. Because Celtic tribes feared them, and so did the pagans as well. When they started settling, and to go a wee bit further back, the Romans also mentioned them as well in written accounts. And it was in wooded areas. And this wooded area is quite an old, what they call an upland in the UK, but in other parts of the world, they're called walking trails, which they're pretty cool. But they're steeped in history though, like so steeped in history. And that's what fascinates me about this woodland, because I didn't expect to, like I said in the Halloween video, like I didn't expect to come across any of this. I've never been here before. And then all of a sudden I started picking up on things. And it's been wild, like wild. There was a reason why some of the old tribes were nomadic. It was mainly due to these beings. Now I'm starting to get the goosebumps like a motherfucker. Because this is a really old woodland. I was right about that. It doesn't help, I've got this whole place lit up like a pollution beacon. Just hearing things. They are mentioned in I won't keep mentioning their name, but they are mentioned in Celtic folklore. They just come under different names, but that's their. We call them we've become called them either shapeshifters or skinwalkers, but that's their proper name. I won't keep mentioning their proper name. I need to try and keep away from that. I need to try and stop looking into that light, because there's a couple of things happening. Anyway. And they lurk in the shadows in the woodlands. They always lurk in the shadows. The main difference is these beings are older. There is a in Appalachia that shares the mountain range and stuff there, shares the same age as the Scottish Highlands. Because at one point there was the lands were connected a long time ago. Because a lot of their ghost tales and stuff can tie up with a lot of ours as well. But they had not sure if they had druids. They had, obviously there's Native American tribes, but the druids were totally different. They sort of revered them, but didn't at the same time. It was all down to the druid tribe, or the Celtic tribe. That's what it mainly boiled down to. It was which druid, Celtic tribe were in a particular druid area would determine whether if they feared them or not. But the Romans, the Saxons and the pagans all didn't. Probably because of the intentions. Because they are mentioned in history. And that's really fascinating, because this torch is fully charged and it's running out of battery already. That one does absolutely nothing. Sorry, just there's that wee handheld flashlight is really good, but it seems to be running out of battery. I have tried to come out a few times, but it's always been rainy. I did have extra videos after the Halloween, coming out on Halloween, but the rain and the wind just ended up getting, well, it was raining anyway, but I ended up getting really, really windy at the same time. And can't really hear anything, because all you hear is leaves rustling and rain hitting the leaves, which is quite therapeutic, but doesn't really make for the kind of it also mimics as well, so it mimics like animals, and it would like mimic voices and stuff. It's a bit like that's why it probably gets called a skinwalker when it's actually completely different, because it's older than a skinwalker. Like I said, I won't keep mentioning their name. If you, I'm probably going to have to do an actual. So I'll try and show. There's like all the noises coming from over in that direction. It's really weird. It's every time I try to talk about this subject, weird things happen. I don't want the. There we go. I have got some notes because there is some things that are not. It's the joys of not having a table and chairs. They are rumoured to be similar to a skinwalker, but they're kind of not. Because they do lurk in the shadows quite a lot. So a couple of recent accounts as well, been looking online at look at recent weird encounters in the UK forests and woodlands and stuff. There's one or two of them that could be due to this, but they get classed as they get classed as a skinwalker, but like I said, they're completely different. Because these only linger in woodlands. Like they don't. That's why I've came in here, because I've had a few weird encounters in here. Like I said, they are connected to the druids. But they're mainly called those that are their true meaning in Old English is those that are hidden. That's their translation. Because some Old English is quite hard to do. It's quite hard to decipher. And they fall under the urban legend because because we class them as skinwalkers, whereas they're completely different. like in that video, I called them that because that a lot of people won't know what if I was to mention their real name. People would just be like, "Oh, well, what's that?" Well, it's something similar to. It's similar, but it's far older. Far older. There we go. That won't drain the battery as much, but it's just as bright. I thought I would come here and do a video because it's quite a strange area. I've had a couple of things so far. But I will be doing I will end up going for a wee walk around and stuff. Because why not? Way I see it is I'm here anyway. The interesting one is the Romans, when they came and stuff, they have actually, they were the first to actually write about them. And then the Saxons did with the Saxon Chronicle. And then the Vikings, obviously, like when the Vikings came, they heard about the rumours and stuff, and then they ended up getting their own encounters. And then a wee bit, like the Romans did a bit of writing about them, but it was mainly the Saxon kings. They actually did the most recording of them, to be fair. They're mentioned quite a lot in the Saxon Chronicle, which is really, really fascinating. Because there's a really good TV series called The Last Kingdom. A couple of the books are actually worth reading because they get mentioned in that, but they don't get shown in because it has a couple of encounters with them, but they don't show it in the TV series, and I was pretty gutted about that because a couple of the in the book where in the movie, like it's sort of like the movie version where the 7 kings must die, like that bit in the book, like that's one of his, it's like a big encounter is with that. He does meet a seer and stuff, but the big encounter, the big thing is the Skolfadin. He does actually have a few encounters with him in the books and stuff. It's actually quite fascinating. But it's like anything. The books are totally different to the Hollywood version of things, or the TV adaptations of things. So on the Celtic side of things, they are actually mentioned in Celtic lore. In Celtic lore, they are beings who belong to Scafach, she who strikes fear, the Dark One, the goddess of the underworld in Celtic myth lore. So it's actually Cailleach. Cailleach is her sister, great goddess. In her destroyer aspect called the Veiled One. Another name is Scotia. Scotia is the great goddess in Celtic lore, and it's the name of Scotland. The original name for Scotland is Caledonia, But the reason it got called Scotland is because of a Celtic goddess called Scotia. Or Scotia. Scotia is probably the actual best proper way of pronouncing. And it's that's how Scotland's called Scotland. Named after the Veiled One. Destroyer and bringer of new beginnings. But these beings that I'm on about, they belong to her sister, Scafach. That's the interesting part. Is Scotland's actually named after a pagan goddess, which is well, what we call Scotland now is actually named after a pagan goddess. And I think it's absolutely brilliant because the amount of I've mentioned it to people off and on in my life, and they go aye, and I'm like, oh no, like actually look it up, like look up the Gaelic lore and like entities and myth lore and stuff, especially the Celtic side, and then you'll become to realise like there's like like we're actually named after like when it came to be known as Scotland, like we're named after Scotia, which is a Celtic goddess, destroyer and bringer of new beginnings, but also very well known as the Veiled One. When I reread that, I was like, I'm doing a journey through the veil. And I'm going to be talking about like Celtic myth lore. And I thought, right, cool, if I'm going to do this urban legend, I need to really do some like, and I'm like, nah, let's go for it. While doing this one, like there's going to be no calling out or anything, because they is probably listening into what I'm saying. And I've always wondered, right, as the original people that named Scotland, because it should technically be called the Scotia land, which would be pretty cool. Same sort of thing. It's actually what it's called in Celtic, in Old Celtic. That's what Scotland's called, Scotia land. Which is, and people think I'm being disrespectful and things to Scotland, and it's like it's actually not, because it's actually named after, Scotland is named after a pagan goddess. And while I'm doing this, the wind's all of a sudden deciding to pick up as well, which is pretty interesting. And a few creepy crawlies have decided to come and join me onto the notes. That's the main interesting part, was getting into the Celtic side and talking about the Celtic lore of how Scotland was named, and it's named after a pagan goddess and stuff, and then it's like, and then I've mentioned it to a few people off and on in my life and stuff, and they all seem, everyone I've mentioned it to, they all seems to think I'm talking doo-doo. Well, talking doo-doo, I am not, because it's also recorded in the Welsh manuscripts, believe it or not. There's a reason why Wales have the dragon on their flag, because it's the old Seax. Yeah, it was actually the old Wessex flag. And a lot of people don't know that. Because towards the latter they actually started anyway. So that's what I find really interesting. In Ireland as well, I will be doing a wee bit on that, because I'll be doing the King Arthur one. There's just the notes for King Arthur's now turning into a book. There's so much, he's mentioned in so much myth lore. Like, he's no even, I can't actually even class him now as an urban legend. It's just going to be like Celtic lore, because he's also mentioned, he's also revered as he's also a pagan. So the pagans also talk about Arthur as well. His name's slightly different in pagan, well, on the Scandinavian pagan side. The Celtic tribes he's named Artur or Artir, because there's all different ways to pronounce them, because I've been finding some really, really strange names, and it's all about because these what I'm talking about are also mentioned in I'm going to try and see if we can. I'll try not to let this one go for too long, because things are starting to pick up again. It's quite hard to. I don't want to keep myself. So I'm hearing things off in the distance while I'm talking about this, because there we go, able to actually hear a bit better. Sorry for the silence, just there's the winds all of us as I started talking about Scotia and Scotland being named after Scotia, which I find really fascinating. I've always found that fascinating. That was one of the first things when I started doing Celtic lore and myth lore and stuff. That was one of the first things I came across. It was the first actual pagan history lesson I actually got, was learning that, Scotland's actually named after a pagan goddess. How interesting. Why does no one talk about that? And it's like, right, this is a case of if you know, you know. Well, I'm now sharing what I've found out. I've always known it, but like this is part of like doing this. I ended up thought, right, well, they're also mentioned in Celtic myth lore. The two sisters knew about, because they were like beings that do the bidding of the dark goddess. The other goddess is deemed as being dark, but she's kind of not, because she's like a destroyer of evil and then the bringer of new beginnings. But her main name is the Veiled One. Walks around in a veil, with a veil. So this is like a wee video on the Skolfadden. Now, it's got nothing to do with a computer game, because I tried to actually find out a bit more about it, and it's like I said, we've became too. There's some of our things we've became too Americanized on. Like, we can't actually call what these are skinwalkers, because of they're mentioned in Celtic lore. They're mentioned in a lot of pagan things. And every single interesting. I don't know if the camera will pick up, but there's something hiding behind the tree just up there. It's pretty nuts. I will be doing a wee walk. I've came down a little bit just to see. Well, that's the main thing I wanted to talk about, was the Skulfadden. We call it, like, we've now called them skinwalkers, and it's like we kind of can't, because like they're actually older. Our version's way, like, no disrespect to Native Americans or anything, and their culture and belief system on, like, and how they mention about the skinwalker and stuff, but like we can't call them skinwalkers because they're actually older. Because when you get into Celtic myth lore and anything to do with Celtic lore, and there's a few, like even the Scandinavian, because like some of the Scandinavian gods are very, very similar to Celtic gods. And then people are like, oh no, they're totally different. I'm like, no, they're no, actually. No, they're no. Their stories are pretty similar. Pretty similar. Because there's a Celtic goddess, and there's a high possible, like her other, like, because she's also mentioned. So there is a Celtic goddess called Danu. She's like the very, very first goddess that you'll come across, because they came from a distant land. Now, on the pagan side, on the Scandinavian side, there's a tale that Freya went away on a boat and then found this land, renamed herself Danu, and yeah, she's like, Freya's like the goddess of the, like, she's a fairy, like she's a fairy god. She's also a fairy god in Scandinavian lore as well. But it's mad how she, like, in a completely new culture, they mention the exact same thing. That the goddess, the fairy god in Celtic lore, is Danu, and Danu is another way of saying Freya, which is really, really interesting. That'll probably cause controversy on the internet, like, but it really shouldn't, because the more digging, like I said, like the following the White Rabbit can be quite interesting. Plus, I've got, like, there's a lot of this has came from a couple of books that I've sourced the book. I've got a couple of books on myth lore and fairy lore and a few other things, and it's like, like, this is actually really fascinating, especially when it comes to what I'm actually talking about. Because to talk about them, you also have to talk about the other things the things that I'm talking about now. Can't do just on the one. You have to, because it's all connected. Because these beings or entities do the bidding of the Dark One. And she's very, very, very similar to Thor's sister Hela, which I find very, very interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if the Celtic goddesses are the same. These are the exact same as the pagan gods, because it's all pagan anyway. It doesn't matter if it's Scandinavian, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, some parts of England, some parts of Europe. It really doesn't make any difference. It's still pagan. Like the country I'm from, Scotland, is named after a pagan goddess, which is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend you do your own. That was a bit strange. I highly recommend you do your own research and look it all up, because it's really interesting. You'll see why I can't, like, if I'm mentioning these, I can't actually, like, and at that, the rain's decided to get up. But I'm going to end this one here, and I'm going to do a wee walkabout, see what happens. Get myself set up for going on the walk. That'll be quite interesting, no doubt. So I thought I would actually come and do an urban legend on the Skilfadden. The beings that lurk in the shadows in ancient woodlands, or woodlands. Now you won't get them in you have to, like, it's on, these are things you won't get in woodlands in a city centre, in the cities or urban areas. Like, these are if you want to encounter these things, you have to go out into the countryside for these encounters, which is why I guess it's why I'm in a woodland in the middle of the countryside. It's not a woodland in the middle of a city or anything. This is a woodland in the middle of nowhere that can take you to other woodlands that lead you into the middle of buttfuck nowhere, and that's where you get real proper encounters, especially at certain times and certain times of the year and stuff. Like, it can be really interesting. So if you live in a city area or an urban area and you've got woodlands and stuff, like, you're not gonna encounter anything like this. It's worth a try. I'm just speaking from experience. Like, I didn't come seeking anything or coming looking for anything. Just I'm very spiritually switched on when it comes to, especially when it comes to these sort of things. Because like I said in the other video, like, it's not a game. Like, I can't emphasise enough. Like, I've had, like, even earlier when at the beginning of this video, like that was something being thrown at me. Like, you got to be careful when you come into the woodlands at night time. And that's what people don't. It's what some people don't get, especially if you're born and raised in a city and never really been out into the countryside. And I mean that in no disrespectful way whatsoever. It's just the truth. Like, you've got to be careful when you come into woodlands and in the middle of nowhere in the countryside. Like, you've got to be careful, like, especially if you're spiritually switched on. Like, things will see you as a challenge. And that is just speaking from experience. That's all it is. It's just speaking from experience. I'm recording some of the experiences I have. Like, they're only like slight wee encounters and stuff like that, but like, that's the whole point in recording them. It's the whole point is to, like, there's been a few times in the woodlands I've had, like, some really questionable things, and I see, even during the day, like during the day I see things during the day as well. It's not just at night time. And all that light is doing is just blinding me. I actually can't just see them. It's like seeing a big ball of light looking into the darkness, and then try to discern if I can see anything or not. Because I can hear things. Because I'm going to do a wee. I nearly walked in. See, this light's totally blinding. I can't see nothing. I'm going to end up taking a walk along there. Go up onto the. So there's a trail that's up there as well. We'll go up there and then come back down. Make it all one one big video. Well, this is the first video. This is to make up for because the weather. I did have content and there was a few things that happened in the videos and stuff, but like there's just way too much wind noise, way too much rain noise, and the things I'm hearing and sensing isn't weather related. But it uses the weather as a cover, and I'm like, sneaky. Because if I was something, that's exactly what I would do. And people be like, oh, you can't see it like that. No, I can see it like that. Like, because it's exactly what I would do. Anyway, I'm going to end this one here. So that's about the urban legend of the Skilfadden. So they're like the hidden, they hide in the shadows in woodlands out in the countryside. If you live in the countryside and go to the woods and you're hearing some things, there's like the high possibility that it could be them. There is other things. I will do another urban legend on another thing that can walk that can be in the woodlands. There's quite a lot actually. It's quite interesting. And this is where people be like, oh, it's superstitious. No. No. I always remember that first video, like just randomly walking about during the day, just getting a feel for the area, and then I come across this wee random woodland, and I sensed there was druid energy there, and it's been it ever since. And then coming into this time of year, I thought, do the journey through the Vale, because there's a few key dates coming up. A big one for me is that's actually today. It's Man New Year. I was going to do a prediction video, but I thought, nah, I'll leave that until the world ain't ready for that at the moment. The world ain't ready for my predictions for 2026 and 2027. Right, the world ain't ready for that. Because I'm not a prophet of doom whatsoever. This is just my dreams and encounters that I've had, and like going out, staying in woodlands. I don't record day ones because I want it to be a spiritual experience. So it's like there's been a few times I've mentioned in a lot of videos that I get divine communication because I take myself out into the middle of buttfuck nowhere, and even like I'm saying, it's like I didn't ask for any of this stuff. Like this stuff switched me back on, so I've kind of got a bit of not in this woodland anyway, but over in what I call the druid wood. Like I'll always call it that. I'll respect it because it switched me back on again for spiritual senses and stuff. So it's like I kind of respect it. It's sort of why I go there for some witching hour experiences, because I know that like some of the stuff I'm talking about, whatever's over there will probably be like, didn't know that. So I'm cluing whatever is over there, the druid energy, cluing it up on more up-to-date things. And like different urban legend stories from because the druid energy is from a completely different day and age. And that's the other thing, people fear that sort of thing, and it's like there's actually nothing to be feared. There's actually nothing to be scared of. And sometimes things catch me off guard a little bit. going to do a walkabout. So I'm going to end this one here. That was the urban legend story of Skulfadden, and a little bit of Celtic history, Celtic lore, myth lore, a few Celtic gods, well, goddesses actually. They're not, they're not male. They're female. Female goddesses from the Celtic side that are pagan. And if you're watching this and you stay in Scotland, we're actually living in a country that's actually named after a pagan goddess. You can look that up. And I find it really fascinating that the goddess is called the Veiled One, destroyer and bringer of new beginnings. Love it. Love it. We're actually one of the very few countries that's actually named after a goddess, which is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So anyway, I'm going to end this one here, brothers and sisters. Come join me on the wee walkabout. See what happens, because it's been interesting doing this. It's been interesting doing this video. So come join me on the next one. The next one, so I'll be walk around to see what happens. I hope you enjoyed the urban legend story. A wee bit of history on some Celtic lore and pagan history as well, because there will be a bit of that coming as well with these videos. There'll be a bit more, especially in 2026. There'll be a lot more of the pagan side, which will tie in with some Celtic lore, which ties up with it being pagan, and some of it will be Celtic pagan and Scandinavian pagan, because a lot of it is connected. Anyway, come join me on the, I forgot to say, come join me on the walkarounds. But the next wee group of uploads will be on the full moon. I've got a couple of good interest. I've got an interesting one for that, because that'll be I'll be doing the predictions. Because it's New Year. I thought I would come here, be a bam pot. Because why not? Anyway, I'm going to do the walkabout. Come join me on the walkabout ones, and I'll see you on the full moon. On the full moon, witching hour. On remember the 5th of November. That's weather permitting. If it's too rainy or too windy, it'll be but I'll still come out and do a video anyway, just to be like, well, I'm out on the full moon. But like Halloween, the walkabout ones weren't really. There was a few times where I encountered things, but all you can hear is wind and rain in the background, and it doesn't make for very good viewing. So anyway, come join me on the walkabout, brothers and sisters. Stay safe, stay blessed. God bless. Peace.